Hello and welcome to another analysis behind the news, where we provide the perspective that you can use to help save American liberty and independence. For the last several months, we've analyzed various news reports to help you see how globalists are working toward building a new world order under a one world government. This is in direct contrast to the founding principles of America. We've demonstrated that globalists come from both major political parties and have been embedded within presidential administrations for decades. We've defined this as the deep state, and we've shown that deep state is working against President Trump's America First initiatives in order to further the agenda of the deep state. Now that the midterm elections have given us a Democratic U.S. House, a stronger Republican majority in the U.S. Senate, and with President Trump right in the middle, what can we expect those interested in building world government to do? Well, let's look at that today. So keeping in mind that the globalists will use crises to build additional levels of government to handle those problems, and that they defer power to international bodies and create regional levels above those in affected countries, we see that the areas of trade, the environment, and immigration as being their largest opportunities to advance their agenda here and around the globe. So let's start off with trade. Since the election, news reports indicate that the newly renegotiated NAFTA agreement, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, may have a more difficult time passing a Democratic House. However, as we have seen in the past, this Democratic opposition is usually only temporary until they get in the agreement what they want, which is usually more onerous regulations for labor and more strangling protections for the environment. So if Trump is not willing to change any of the draft agreement, one thing that he could do is to present it to the Senate as a treaty. So according to the Constitution, under Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, it states, "He, the President, shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur." However, he began this process by using the protocol set up via the Trade Promotion Authority that Congress created, in which the President's administration negotiates an agreement and then Congress as a whole votes on it. When voting, they can only vote for or against, and they are not allowed to add amendments or even to filibuster. A simple majority of both the Senate and the House passes it. In looking at the specific language of the USMCA agreement, we conclude that it is worse than NAFTA in regards to helping build even more regional government infrastructure that takes us closer to an EU-style union of the three North American countries. Regardless of whose signature is on the bill, or if American businesses or organized labor got a better deal, American sovereignty is still paying for it. Because of this, we greatly oppose the USMCA. Globalist negotiators in the U.S. Trade Representative Office are also seeking these agreements with the UK, the European Union, Japan, countries of sub-Saharan Africa, and talks began with China late last week. We foresee better deals for global companies, but again, American sovereignty will end up paying for it as more and more unaccountable regional bureaucracy is built and international organizations continue to take over governing responsibility. Now, moving on to the environment, globalists have just signaled their indication for a large push to combat climate change. It doesn't make any difference what your stance on climate change is, whether man has helped to create it or not, but what does make a difference is the proposed solution from globalists. Now, the United Nations released a report last month, and in it, it demands rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society to, of course, avoid warming the planet further. The New American reported this as the proposed solution. It states, "Give the UN and its more oppressive member regimes much more money and power. A carbon tax of $5,500 per ton of carbon by 2030 and $27,000 per ton by 2100 should help," the UN said, demanding trillions in new annual spending. To put this into perspective, this would be equivalent to $49 and up to $240 of taxes for every gallon of gasoline burned. So of course, the plan is to tax you to the point that you can't afford to consume hydrocarbons. And how would they go about that? Through Agenda 21 and 2030. This plan of taxing you to control your choices and decisions was born out of their 1992 Earth Summit as just one tactic. But how do they implement this scheme? Through a broad array of non-governmental and intergovernmental organizations that influence local governments on all areas related to sustainable development. You may have seen these efforts in your local community. An easy way to find out is to search for ICLEI, which is ICLEI, which used to be named the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, but was changed to Local Governments for Sustainability. So watch for an uptick in activity on the local level being driven by the United Nations and its globalist plan to reorient all human society unlike anything the world has ever experienced. And those aren't our words. Those come from their supporters. We also predict that their conference in Poland next month will roll out even more plans to create incentives for developing countries to get sucked into implementing Agenda 2030 plans, not to mention how to rope in more advanced countries to pay for these incentives. We will probably see this type of wealth redistribution scheme being proposed by at least the U.S. Democratic House. Regarding immigration, globalists will continue to spark the crises that create fleeing migrants, as well as funding and organizing the well-publicized migrant caravans. Presumed incoming House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, has earned a measly 10% regarding her adherence to the Constitution in the latest Freedom Index, has already stated that immigration will be a topic to tackle in the next session of Congress after the first of the year. Now, this next session is going to be very interesting. Something to watch will be where the House, the Senate, and President Trump find common ground, with globalists dominating trade, the environment, immigration, and a plethora of other items used to govern away your choices, your freedom, and your liberty. This common ground will undoubtedly be the foundation for further erosion of American sovereignty. So, thanks to all that Republican leadership did or failed to do these last 2 years, it appears that the America First agenda is dead on arrival for at least the next 2 years in Congress. And the fact remains that once again, Republicans held Congress and the executive branch. So what does Paul Ryan and all those that backed him have to show for it? Speaker Ryan followed former Speaker Boehner's lead by not standing for anything and, of course, falling for everything. The John Birch Society has seen rising waves of popular conservatism come and go, particularly with Senator Barry Goldwater, President Ronald Reagan, the GOP sweeps in the 1990s, and that of the Tea Party in the mid-2000s. Regardless of the political campaign rhetoric, we have to ask, what was the result of all of this? Was the amount of government decreased by adhering to the constitutional limitations as written by our founders, whereby expanding liberty for all? Because that is all the measurement that we need. The American experiment cannot continue when we operate according to globalist plans. Now, if you've watched these weekly videos, you know that the globalists hold no monopoly on a particular political party. they actually control the leadership of both. And this is why millions of Americans all across this country are furious at these political parties. And they should be. Look at the amount of entitlements, debt, and other forms of government dependency that have ballooned the size and the scope of what is supposed to be limited federal government. Now, we bring all of this up today to let you know that there is a much better and more satisfying way to ensure that America gets back on track. Right now, there are currently many thousands of patriots working as one in a program that employs nothing more than education and truth to rein in big government. Where we have sufficient help, we have seen great successes over the years. Nationally, we have stopped many trade agreements, keeping America from becoming a North American Union. We have helped to withdraw scores of towns, cities, and some states from the clutches of the United Nations Agenda 21 and 2030 program. And we have helped expose the globalists, their strategies and tactics, warning not just Americans, but many other liberty-loving people around the globe who have taken up the fight in their country. The fight for American liberty and independence won't occur in the future. It's happening now. If you wish to join the finest body of men and women ever assembled to fight for less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world, then apply for membership at jbs.org or give us a call. With your help, the New World Order will not be built on our watch. Until next time, we'll see you then.